The sequel to The Wandering Earth is here. I drove an hour and a half to see this movie. Was it worth it? Let's talk about it. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. This is the prequel to The Wandering Earth, a huge blockbuster with a massive budget. It's in select theaters right now, and I believe it's coming to Netflix soon, but let's talk about this film. In the near future, after learning that the sun is rapidly burning out and will obliterate Earth in the process, humans build enormous engines to propel the planet to a new solar system far out of reach of the sun's fiery flares. However, the journey out into the universe is perilous, and humankind's last shot at survival will depend on a group of young people brave enough to step up and execute a dangerous life-or-death operation to save Earth. This is a Chinese blockbuster in the sci-fi action genre. Like I said, it's technically a prequel to the first Wandering Earth, a movie that I thought was massive, full of crazy CGI effects, and it's this magnificent type of adventure with a story that was good enough, right? I didn't love the first Wandering Earth. I thought it was serviceable as a massive blockbuster. But this story begins in the early days of the Moving Mountains project, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know if you have to see the first film to understand where you're coming from here, because it is, like I said, a prequel, but it's also something that's setting up what is to come down the line. But I found this story to be just as interesting, if not more so, than the first Wandering Earth. I also found there to be more interesting characters in this movie. Character development, much better handled here. And I think the stakes, while they're massive in the first movie, it feels like this impending doom focus is something that's going to keep audiences on the edge of their seats much more so than what the first delivered. If you haven't figured it out yet, I think this one is superior to The Wandering Earth. I had more fun with it. Yes, it's lengthy at almost 3 hours long, so it's definitely one that if you're not invested in what's going on, you're not going to enjoy all that much, but there's enough here visually to keep a lot of people on board all throughout this runtime. But I want to get into kind of what this story is dealing with this time around. So I talked about being in the early days of this Moving Mountain project, with the coalition of the world's nations deciding to place these massive machines in locations all around the Earth to move the planet away from the sun, and then they're putting more on the moon, where that's going to move that planet away from Earth. So at the same time as all of these massive things happening, the population, they're being put in these underground bunkers, so there's a lot of death and peril and sadness in this movie. So of course, in all of these post-ish apocalyptic type films, you have riots happening, protesters, supporters of one side, people on the opposition, and we are acquainted, or kind of reacquainted, with this character who, when the movie starts, is competing to be a part of this effort. And we're also dealing with some themes here. Of course, there's going to be some commentary when you're dealing with the impending doom of Earth. You're dealing with various countries here, kind of where they are positioned on the political side of things with everything that's happening, because of course you have the big sci-fi elements, but you also have to deal with the repercussions that come from what they are doing, what countries are for and against what they're trying to do in this film, and then our main characters, along with our story here that spans several decades. So part of me feels as if this movie needed to be lengthy. Did it need to be 3 hours? Well, not necessarily, but you start out with young characters who grow to be much older by the time you get to the more quote-unquote important parts of the story. We're also dealing with artificial life and what humanity means. We actually just dealt with a movie like this on Netflix. And then the first Wandering Earth had a very similar subplot. But I will say, when it comes to comparing this movie to other big disaster movies, the first film, but I look at a director like Roland Emmerich, who has given us movies lately that I haven't necessarily responded to. I look at last year, Moonfall is a great example of a big, dumb blockbuster that a lot of people are going to have fun with. I did not think it was good, but this plot, and I think these characters, more importantly, were much more interesting for me. I'm watching this film thinking, okay, I'm actually kind of on board with what we're doing, and since we're spanning so much time, yes, that is a lot to deal with. Even in a 3-hour film, we're still getting to know them, we're getting to understand them, the mission that they're on. It reminded me more of the stakes of an Armageddon compared to the stakes of a 2012 or Moonfall, where the stakes are as big as you could ever imagine, with the world being destroyed and all of this crazy stuff, but you have to deliver compelling characters and a solid script. I don't know if Roland Emmerich movies have done that lately, but you look back at his older projects and some disaster movies, I even think The Day After Tomorrow is pretty good, and I would put The Wandering Earth Part 2 above The Wandering Earth Part 1 and compare it more so to that, to where you care more. But the focus is always going to be on the big, massive CGI action sequences. The dogfights specifically happening in the sky were really entertaining. But it's not just that, right? You have drone stuff, martial arts, robots fighting, things that happen to certain characters that may be unexpected for some, but no one is safe in this movie. That's another thing I like, right? Usually in a film like this, you have plot protection, plot armor for certain characters, and you know for a fact, it's like, well, that guy's definitely going to make it through because it's being played by Patrick Wilson, right? In this film, you have really talented actors and big stars here, but for the most part, no one has that plot armor, that plot protection, unless they need to go from one scene to the next. But in terms of getting to the end of the film, it's nothing we haven't seen before, but we've never necessarily seen it presented on a scale this big, and I was compelled way more than I thought I was going to be compelled, and even it being a prequel, I think the stakes are high enough and big enough. Again, I can't use the word big enough. It's a massive, massive movie, but I need to know down below, are you watching The Wandering Earth Part 2 this weekend? Did you enjoy the first film? Again, I thought it was okay. This one was better, in my opinion. My question is, what's the best big disaster movie to come out over the last 25-ish years? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, you want to drop a like, that would be great. While it isn't the most original disaster-based movie, the visuals and overall scale make the theatrical experience worth it. The stakes feel more important here, and the amount of time spent with the characters is warranted. This is a big, crazy disaster movie that I actually recommend going and seeing, and that's rare because the last several years I just haven't really liked any of them. I'm going a 70% with my score. I had a good time with this, and it's definitely worth a watch on the biggest screen you can find. A lot of speakers too, man. Go Dolby, go IMAX, wherever you go. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you soon.